Nightmares. I never really understood them because, well, I never had them. This is why when I did, I was always surprised. It was like all of the horrors of reality seeped into my brain with no way of getting out. At first, I didn't even know they were nightmares. I would be watching a man from a third perspective. I never saw his face because he was always turned away from me, but from what I did see, I will admit, he was a handsome looking man. He had straight black hair, he was about 6 foot 2 inches, and looked fairly toned. He was always wearing a black suit with a red tie, and it was always nice and sunny outside. The birds were chirping and there was a slight breeze. I would see him walking on the sidewalk trying to hail down a cab. Every time one would stop for him, everything became silent and turned black. Then there was a snap. I don't know why, but whenever I hear that, it sends a shiver down my spine. It's not like anything else happens, just a snap. Now this was a recurring dream, happening about once or twice a week. Each dream was almost exactly the same. The only difference was that a different cab would pull up, and the snap would grow a little bit louder. A few weeks of continuously having this dream went by. I was in bed one night thinking if I would have the dream again. The low hum of my fish tank kept me awake for a little while until I slowly drifted to sleep. The first thing I saw was the man. The dream carried out like usual. Almost. Everything played up perfectly, but it seemed the man was walking towards me instead of away like he usually did. Despite the fact that he was facing my direction, I couldn't actually see his face. There was an oddly placed shadow that surrounded it, like a mask. A yellow cab pulled up from the distance. He stepped inside and it got dark. There was silence. It was the sort of unnerving silence that you get right before something bad is going to happen. It was like the calm before a terrible storm. But nothing happened. I waited and waited, but all I saw was darkness, and all I could hear was empty silence. Some time went by until I finally heard the snap. Or was it? It sounded more like a knocking, and it was getting more frequent. I woke up and the doorbell rang. Turning over to look at the time, and it read 4:57 a.m. What can someone possibly want at this time of night? I asked to myself. After quickly pulling on a pair of track pants and a t-shirt, I cautiously headed down the stairs. There was a small stream of light flowing through the frosted window on the front door from a dim street lamp outside. The light reflected onto the floor, illuminating the hallway. After getting downstairs, I felt the coolness of the tiles underneath my bare feet. I got to the door, but I didn't see anybody. Whoever it was must have left. I turned back around to go upstairs when something got my attention. I couldn't see the top. It was as if someone put up a black blanket ending just above the last step. I shrugged it off, assuming it was just my grogginess getting the better of me. However, I was wrong. Halfway up the stairs, I noticed that I was no longer making any progress. I would walk up one step, then the next, but never actually moved forward. It was as if the stairs expanded infinitely into nothingness. Then I heard the snap. I turned around and saw the shadow of the handsome man in my dream. There was only one problem, though. His head was snapped upside down. His eyes were just shells in a pitch-black socket with a crimson liquid dripping from the bottom. He also has razor-sharp teeth, dripping with his saliva. I turned back around and began sprinting up the stairs, still without making progress. I heard him dragging his body up behind me, which made me sprint harder. However, whatever blackness was at the top of the stairs prevented me from getting there. I heard him get closer and closer until I felt a tap on my back that sent me into panic. Quickly spinning around, I was surprised to see nothing there. I must have been daydreaming. One thing caught my eye, though. There was what looked like a note taped to the outside of my front door window. Recalling what just happened, I didn't remember the note being there. Silently walking back down the stairs, I headed towards this note. I looked around to see if, once again, anyone was there. Nothing. I slowly reached for the handle, which was ice cold when I touched it, and unlocked the door. Now outside, I felt the cool fall breeze upon my unprotected arms. I grabbed the note from the door and looked at the paper. It was crumpled up and the writing looked like a 4-year-old wrote it. "Look up," were the only 2 words scribbled on it. My face turned white. When I lifted my head, the door slammed shut, locking me outside. Rising up from the bottom of the door was the man in the suit. He looked exactly the way he did when I saw him on the stairs. Slowly lifting up his hand, he waved, taunting me. He then turned around and walked towards the stairs. Realizing what he was about to do, I screamed. I don't think I ever screamed that loud before. I screamed until my face turned red, but nothing. It was silent. All I could hear was the rustle of leaves that were scattered all over the ground. I tried to turn the handle, but it was still locked. After slamming the note back on the door, I turned my back against it and began to sob. Whatever nightmare it was in, I wanted out. Then I heard it. Snap. Snap. I tried for the door once again. This time it opened with ease. After opening it, I felt everything get colder. That didn't make sense, though. It was much colder outside than it was inside. Pushing the thought out of my mind, I ran upstairs towards my parents' room. When I reached it, the door was open. I knocked on it, but I got no response. I didn't know what to expect when I walked into the bedroom. It was too dark to see anything, and conveniently enough, the lights are right next to the bed. I walked towards the bed and saw the silhouette of 2 people in awkward positions lying on the bed. Both of them. Both of my parents. How could he have done this to them? Their heads, barely visible in the darkness, were snapped upside down. Their eyes were just shells in a pitch-black socket. They both had razor-sharp teeth dripping with their saliva. All around the bed were dark stains. I knew what they were, but I tried not to think about it. My dad made a small, gurgling sound. I couldn't handle it anymore. Darkness consumed me as I fell to the ground and passed out. I woke up in bed, looking around, and I was relieved to see it was just a sick, twisted dream. It was 7:54. I put on my school clothes and headed downstairs to have some breakfast. While I was sat down eating at the dimly lit table, I realized my parents weren't up yet. I shrugged it off, remembering that they both worked late last night. After breakfast, I got all my books and headed down the hall. While walking, I noticed something up ahead that made me stop dead in my tracks. There was a crumpled note taped to the outside of the door.